Good morning, everyone. I'm Alistair Bennett and you're watching Expressive Photography. You joined me here on the Isle of Lewis this morning, and in this video I'm going to show you how to shoot a sunrise to create images that are both unique, expressive, exciting and incredibly good for your mental health. Well, what a difference a week makes. In last week's video I was talking about my frustration, how disappointed I was, how angry I was with myself, how nothing that I wanted to do worked. And I decided when I came out to make today's video that I was going to completely change my mindset. So how do we improve our motivation? Well, first and foremost, do the opposite of what we did last week. Get rid of expectations. I came out this morning expecting maybe a little bit of light and it absolutely cracked off. It just went bananas, which kind of caught me off guard a little bit. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go back into the studio. We're going to look at the sorts of images that one would expect to shoot at a beach at sunrise, and then I'm going to lead you down the warped path of my imagination to shoot the photographs that I really got excited about making. So hopefully by the end of this video you're either going to be thinking two things. One is that I'm a genius and that your time has been well spent watching this channel, and secondly that you don't have to go out and shoot the obvious. You don't have to go out and do the things that are expected of you in terms of a traditional landscape photography context. I have had an absolute blast. I cannot wait to show you the photographs that I've been making.
Here we are back in my studio here. What a morning that was, and I really didn't want it to end. So what's the point of this video? Well, I'm sure most of us, many of you will have been on seascape shoots, you'll have been to the coast or anywhere else for that matter in the morning or sunset. But the point of this is that when the light is kicking off, we can get very sucked into panic mode of running around like a headless chicken, worrying that we're missing things, worrying that we're not making the most of the situation. And this kind of ties into last week's video where I was super frustrated, but that was because I didn't have the right lens with me for what it was I was seeing. I was a lot smarter this time. I had my 500mm, of course, but I'd also packed my 45 to 100 and my 20 to 35. So I had a much broader range of image options available. So I did actually go out last night trying to make this video, and the light was super flat, and I did make some images that I kind of liked, but I wasn't 100% happy with it, and the forecast was good for this morning, so I decided to go out nice and early, back to the same beach that I've now been to a couple of times. So it's still quite new and quite fresh. I haven't nailed it in terms of compositions yet. The photograph I'm showing on the screen now this isn't the first image I took, but this is what the place looks like. You've got this beautiful coastline, beautiful rocks. The light was going bananas. The color of the water, the atmosphere, everything was absolutely stunning. But this isn't what I shot when I first got there. It was just getting light. It was still quite dark. And if I show the first scene, this is what caught my eye first. So I literally got out the car, the light was on the horizon, it was still quite dark, but this is the reflected light from this very thin band of light on the horizon. And it was the first thing I noticed when I walked down to the beach. That is my absolute top tip in terms of how to make images that are unique. You are likely to notice things that many people walk past. Everyone gets fixated on the big picture, and it's very easy to go down that route. And the problem with the big picture is when the light is kicking off, particularly if this is the first time you've been to a location, You don't know what to shoot. You don't know where you are. You don't know what features are available. I had a little bit of knowledge from the previous visits I'd been there, but not a huge amount. This is literally the second time I've been to this beach. So when I saw something that caught my eye, I went for it, pointing down at my feet and just using a slightly slower shutter speed to slow down the water to make it a little bit less busy. I want the focus of this photograph to be this beautiful color and texture in the sand there. So with scenes like this, every single frame is unique. The way the water's moving in, the way the light is changing, everything is absolutely unique. And each composition is different. And this kind of got me into the mood, really, because as soon as you start taking photographs like this, you are down the rabbit hole. You are looking through the viewfinder. You're timing the waves moving in and out. You're anticipating to a certain extent what you think is going to happen, without expectation, of course. But I was super happy with this. Now, these are just the raw files. I've barely touched them in terms of work. A little bit of cropping, a little bit of levels, things like that, but nothing crazy has been done to these photographs. And the next thing I noticed was the way the light was shining off the dark water surface. And again, this is really hypnotic when you're looking through the viewfinder to the way the water's moving and constantly in motion, and the way the light is changing. And every single photograph I was making was just, it was like hypnosis. And I mentioned in the introduction here that not only do you get to make photographs that are unique and very personal to you, but it's really good for your mental health, purely because when you're looking at this type of stuff, you can't be thinking about anything. You are so engrossed in the moment that it is just absolutely all-consuming. And I love that with my photography. When I can get into that zone, I guess people call it a flow state. I call it mindlessness because I like to be different. But when I'm in that mindlessness state, I am much, much happier with myself, and I'm much, much happier with my photography. As the light started to evolve, this is looking across to the mainland of Scotland. So that's about 16 miles away, using the 500mm, the new 500mm lens, which didn't go so well the other day. And this was really just, I liked that kind of layer of how the dark ocean, then sort of horizon, and then the dark cloud capping it. It was very obvious that this light was going to evolve and to change, and I just wanted to take this shot more as a kind of a memory. And you tend to start thinking, oh, what should I be photographing? The thing with flow states is you can't stay in them for long. Very quickly you start thinking that you're in a flow state, and you find yourself very, very quickly thinking, oh, what should I be doing here? And that's when I started thinking about taking more big picture stuff. However, quite quickly I got myself back into zoning in mode. This was just the area of rocks to the bottom left hand side of the very first photograph that I showed you there. You can see a little bit of it in that original scene. And again, for me, focusing in on these beautiful textures and details, and then using my case, I think this is with a 3-stop ND and a polarizer combined, to basically just manipulate that shutter speed to get that slight movement, that impression of movement. And when it comes to making unique photographs at sunrise, my second tip is don't photograph the sunrise, photograph its effect. And that is going to be the theme as we move forward over the next couple of images here, is don't photograph the actual sunrise, photograph the reflected light of the sunrise or the light on something else. And thirdly, manipulating time. If you are at the coast and there is flowing water, the choice of your shutter speed is massively important. it is the only reason to carry neutral density filters. When the light is such that it's too bright to shoot a slow shutter speed, you are absolutely screwed. Once you've gone down to your minimum ISO, that's as slow as you can go, or how small an aperture you want to go. You've got those variables, your ISO and your aperture, and that's all that manages your shutter speed. So an ND filter is the best way. 3 stops can often be enough, and of course 6 stops and 10 stops are also quite common. This is a similar image to the previous one, but I prefer actually that area down in the bottom right hand corner of the frame. There's something really magical about that for me. I think this is one where you never quite know what you're going to get with this type of photography. Every time you push the shutter, you are unsure of the result. And I think that is the driver for my favorite word in landscape photography, which is surprise. When I can surprise myself with a result, I like that. I don't like to know 100% of where I'm going sometimes, and I do like that, the product of that serendipity. Again, this is another image where I'm photographing the reflected light rather than the direct light, and I just think it's a really sweet way of photographing a sunrise without it being explicitly a sunrise. It's just adding that little blush of pleasure and joy to the scene, which could be photographed at any time of the day. I mean, you could do this at noon if you wanted to, but obviously you're going to miss out on that beautiful soft light. Now, this was when I decided to really go down the rabbit hole of photographing the effect and not the cause. So obviously this sunrise had got really intense. The light was absolutely fantastic. The clouds were all incredibly beautiful, but I was absolutely captivated by this area of the rocks. This is probably my favorite photograph of the morning. It's just so intense. The way the light is interacting with those rocks, creating these luminous and saturated platforms. I feel also that the shutter speed was nice, quite slow. I think it's about 4 seconds, something like that, creating quite an atmospheric feel at the back. This for me is a really good example of don't photograph, or choosing not to photograph the sunrise itself, but photographing the effect of the sunrise. This has all the intensity and power of a sunrise without showing the sun. And this one, finally, this was at the end here, and I included it because I quite like it, and I'm sure it's going to be a polarizing photograph. I like how it's very intimate. This is again with the 500mm, so this is quite a way away, but I was noticing that as the waves were coming in, they were splashing through this little channel in the background there, and I really like the seaweed in the foreground, just adding that little bit of color. So to me, this is quite an intimate seascape. The sea is in it, so that counts surely. But I quite like it. I like the angularity of it, and I like the kind of mystery of it. But it's another really good example of not shooting the obvious. This photograph was only made because I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, away from the main action, away from the sunrise. This is just another part of the beach. And using the long focal length allowed me to get right into it and just isolate it. And I think this was the point of this video, was I'd gone out last night, I'd scouted this beach, the light was as flat as you could possibly imagine. It wasn't that it was uninspiring, it's just it wasn't dramatic and it wasn't eye-catching. And the thing about going out when it's kicking off is that everything you point your camera at is potentially magnificent. And I think landscape photographers, we kind of live for those moments where the energy of a sunrise or a sunset is so intense that it just picks you up, and whatever kind of mood you're in, it drags you into positivity. And again, I really want to hammer home how important our mental health is, and art and photography are fundamental parts of our expression. Last week I was talking about how frustrated I was and how angry I was with myself. And the good news, and first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for all the incredible comments that you made on the channel. It was really touching to hear that I was resonating with you, and obviously hearing your words of support and telling me that, not to take it all too seriously. But at the end of the day, it only lasted for half an hour until I got home and I recorded the video. Whereas this morning's session, when I was out there at the beach, it was a celebration of being in a beautiful place, in a beautiful moment, watching beautiful light and making intimate photographs with no pressure. And this is the lesson I really want to share with you today, is when the light is kicking off, don't ruin the beauty of that experience by running around like a headless chicken, or panicking, or worrying too much about getting the perfect composition. Look for where the light is shining on some rocks or on some wet sand or catching in a little pool somewhere. Reflected light in incongruous situations like that is absolutely bread and butter for creative, expressive photographers. I do hope you've enjoyed this little video that I've made for you. I have certainly enjoyed making it, and for me that's a win, so I'm very grateful. I am on a workshop right now, the first Scottish Islands workshop that I'm doing this autumn, so hopefully that's going well and we're all still talking. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your views and all of your comments. If you're new to the channel and you've got this far, click the subscribe button, and hopefully you will enjoy future content as well as trawling back over all our old content. That's it for today. I look forward to bringing you another video next Sunday, where I will no doubt be sharing some other deep and meaningful insights with you. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.